Oh, yeah. Okay, cookie, because you will.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Welcome to tonight's session, Parasites, what they are and what to do about them. And my name is Mu'min Abdullah, and I'll be facilitating this meeting. Again, welcome to the session. These are live sessions that I'm hoping to do regularly for the members of the GAPS group and anyone who they wish to invite to help understand topics that we might not bring up in the group and for us to further connect with each other live and in person. So tell me where you're coming in from. Use the chat. First, before we get started, can you hear me well? Type 1 in the chat if you can hear me well. Great. Halima, yeah, one. Nice. Nice, the one. Great. Okay, where are you turning in from? Where are you tuning in from? Okay, London. Nice. Manchester. Okay, London again. Good. Essex. Okay. What are you hoping to learn from this session? Okay, what to do if we recognize symptoms of parasites. Okay. In children specifically. Okay. How to treat 4-year-olds who grind teeth. Okay. Swimming children to help my son's eczema. All right. Okay, nice. Have quite a variety of reasons. Okay. So what comes to mind when you think of parasites? When you hear the word parasites, what comes to mind? Okay, worms, worms, insects, bugs eating your insides. Wow, that's vivid. That it's bad for us. Okay. Feeding creatures. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Does anything positive come to mind? Okay, these are feeding creatures feeding off our nutrients. Good. Okay. Okay. Good. All right. So before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm an educator. I have over 20 years in the field of education in various realms of education. I'm an entrepreneur and a homeschooling mother of 9. I'm a certified coach in 3 areas. That's the GAPS diet, life, and body correction. So 3 different areas that I bring together when I work with my clients. And I've been supporting moms with fixing their health and the health of their children for over a decade. Now, what we're going to talk about is parasites, what they are, what they do, and what to do about them. And inshallah, we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. Okay. So what are parasites? And as you stated earlier, they're worms that live in the body. Now, just to be specific, this is what we're specifically talking about in this session, because the word parasite can be used for any type of microorganism or a small living being that's in another living being and uses it for its own benefit and nutrients. Okay. So in this case, when we're talking about parasites, we're talking about worms that live in the body. Some common ones are threadworms, tapeworms, person whipworms, and hookworms. Now, threadworms are really kind of very tiny. Tapeworms can be very, very long. They could be like for 2, 3 meters long in the body. So they're different sizes, and these are some of the common ones that live in our body. The life cycle can take place in the body. So the worm's life cycle can actually take place inside the human body. So a worm will get in the body, lay the eggs. The eggs will be distributed in different places where they need to be, and then hatch. When the eggs hatch, the the worms can actually move to other places of the body till they get where they want to be and start the life cycle all over again. So the life cycle of a worm can take place inside your body. So it's not just that we get a full grown worm and it continues to grow, but they can also uh, lay eggs and then hatch and so on inside your body. They can be found in the lungs, liver, brain, eyes, heart, spleen, gut, skin, and mucous membranes. So it's important to know that parasites aren't restricted to our gut or digestive system. They can actually travel around the body and end up in many different organs as we listed here. And in some cases, they can even end up in your lymphatic system in lymph nodes. So parasites can actually move around your body and enter into different organs and do different things in those organs. Live eggs and worms have been used as a remedy for various digestive issues and other diseases, and this is called Hellman's therapy. So there have been studies done on the use of parasite eggs and actual live worms that are put into a person's digestive system to help it to help clear up certain diseases and certain ailments. So when we're thinking of parasites, they actually have a benefit and they have been used as they've been studied for the use um, for healing purposes. Any questions about that before we go on about what parasites are? Yes, I don't, no questions. Okay. So what do parasites do? They help clean the body by feeding on fungi and toxic waste. Okay, so parasites are not the only microorganisms or small living creatures that are inside of our body. There are actually many different types that live inside the human body. You have fungi, you have You have bacteria, you have worms or parasites. You can also have other things like flukes that live inside the human body. So parasites are not the only small living creature or microorganism that's in the body. They have a relationship with fungi, with fungi or yeast that's in the human body. The most common form of yeast is called candida. And what they do is they feed on the yeast and what the yeast produces. So there's yeast in the body, it eats and grows. As it eats and grows, the worms also eat the fungi and what they produce, what they excrete. So there's a relationship there. So if there's fungi, if there's yeast in the body, it's very, very common to have parasites. So if your body has waste, toxic waste from fungi in particular, then you know that you're going to have parasites. Now, typically they do not cause problems when the gut microbiome is balanced. So they really don't cause problems in your body unless you have microorganisms that live together in your gut, in your digestive tract. We call this a microbiome. This is the collection of all of those microorganisms that are living together in your gut. When it is off balance, then you have a problem with parasites, and you also will have a problem with other microorganisms that are there. Okay, so typically parasites don't cause a problem until you have an imbalance. Okay, so when the gut is balanced, they won't cause any problems. You won't see any symptoms, but they will cause problems when the microbiome is out of balance. Okay, so a good you don't have good bacteria in your gut, for example, or you don't have good yeast that's in your gut that's controlling the candida or the yeast that may have negative effects on your health. So when all of this is out of balance, then the parasites also become out of balance, and then you get an infestation. So what are the symptoms of a parasite infestation? You'll get bloating and abdominal pain. So you might see like your stomach is inflated, that whole abdominal area is puffy, you're holding gas in your stomach area. You might have pain, cramps, and in that area, nausea, or vomiting. So you might just feel like you're going to vomit throughout the day, and you might actually vomit as a result. Rash around the rectum. So you typically will have, in that area, will be itchy. So you have an itchy bottom. When you're watching children, you'll see them scratching their bottom a lot. Okay, you might actually see it rashes as well, small bumps or little red bumps around that area. Sleeplessness or feeling tired. So you, let's say you go to sleep or your child goes to sleep, and then sometime in the middle of the night you just wake up. You're restless. You can't really get to sleep. And then in the morning, you're tired. You just feel kind of down, drained. Okay. Grinding teeth. This is a symptom of a parasite infestation. See this in children where once they go into a deep sleep, you hear them grinding their teeth back and forth in their sleep. And then weight loss. Okay, so uh, a parasitic infestation generally might lead to malnutrition, which then leads to weight loss. And then you have all the other symptoms that also might lead to weight loss. For example, in children, when there's an issue with parasites, You'll see them get like irritable, they're whiny, cryy. They might be asking for food a lot. But when you give them food, they don't want to eat. They'll say, my stomach hurts. Okay, and they just don't eat. Then they might just go to sleep in the middle of the day. But at night, they're awake, tossing, turning, teeth grinding, etc. And and you'll see them like scratching, like I said earlier, scratching that area often. Okay, so these are all symptoms of a parasite infestation. Any questions before we go on? No. The question is, they don't need to have all the symptoms. No, they don't need to have all the symptoms, but you will see most of them. So if you are concerned about parasites and you saw one of the symptoms, start looking for the other ones because you will see at least 3 of them combined. Okay, and that will really let you know that something's happening. These are there other symptoms? These are the most common symptoms that you will have. Okay, so these are some of the first symptoms that you're going to see. Okay, yeah, so you've noticed some already. Okay, all right. So let's talk about that. Okay, so what to do? The presence of parasites is an indication that there is an imbalance in the gut. If you see symptoms of a parasite infestation, it's likely that there's other things happening in the gut. There's something else that's not in sync, is not in proportion, is out of balance. And so now you have a parasite infestation. So that's the first thing that you have to remember, that if you have strong presence of parasites, then something is not going right in your gut. Attacking the worms may make the situation worse. So typically, the first thing that we think is, okay, just get rid of them. Take something and get rid of them. This might not actually be the best course of action because if we recall, parasites actually have a job. Every microorganism has a job to do, and their job is to help clean up certain things. We might not know all of the things that parasites clean up because parasites are still being researched and studied, so we don't know exactly what they do in totality, in full. Um, Other studies show that that the body can actually call on parasites to clean up certain things. Okay, so attacking them might not be the best thing to do because they're actually performing a job. So if you have yeast overgrowth, for example, yeast overgrowth actually has many symptoms, many negative symptoms. Some of those symptoms might be alleviated by the fact that there are worms present, there are parasites present that are cleaning up some of the toxins that are released from the yeast. So just full on attacking the parasites might actually make the situation worse. If symptoms are present, a natural antiparasitic can be used, like Hing or asafoetida. Now, there are some times where you might see a rapid increase in these symptoms, okay, the symptoms of parasites. Let's say you recently traveled and when you got home, you started seeing, all of these symptoms, whereas before the child was fine or you were fine. So now you might want to just go ahead and bring those parasites down because you're seeing symptoms, but you want to do that naturally. Um, Hing or asafoetida is a very effective parasite cleanse. You only need a little bit of it, and it starts to work immediately. Within a day, you will start to see effects of using the heme. But the best course of action is to restore the microbial microbial balance using the GAPS nutritional protocol. So the best thing to do is not just to attack them outright, is to bring back the balance, bring back what your body needs to start controlling the parasites. And what I've seen in my practice and working with clients and working with my own family is that when you start implementing the GAPS nutritional protocol, when you start the GAPS diet, you will start to control other microorganisms like yeast. When you start getting the yeast under control, you will get the parasites under control, and your body will flush all of it. It will get rid of all of it on its own. I was working with a client once, and her daughter started showing these symptoms. She was grinding her teeth, scratching, um, kind of irritable, not really feeling well, didn't have a good appetite. And so we suspected that she was having these were signs of parasites. My recommendation was to not do anything, to not go ahead and attack the parasites. And surely what happened was in a few days, she started to flush. Those parasites started to come out on their own. So it's not necessary if you're doing the GAPS protocol to rush to kill parasites. Okay, you don't want to do that. You want to let the body start to restore the balance. Okay, so I'm going to open up with a Q&A. I wanted this to be quite short and direct so that you'll have time to ask your own questions. And I see some in the chat already. Okay. What are the symptoms of yeast overgrowth? Okay, so that is actually, might actually be our next session because yeast is actually very prolific. And pretty much anyone that has a gut issue is going to have a problem with yeast. Okay, that's going to be the first thing. And then subsequently, if you have a problem with yeast, then you're going to have a problem with parasites. Okay, symptoms of yeast overgrowth: bloating, brain fog, itchy skin, eczema, yeast on the tongue, sugar cravings, anxiety, depression. These are some of the symptoms of a yeast overgrowth. Okay. And using the GAPS protocol, you will start to get the yeast under control. Next question. Is it possible to balance the microbiome by doing, for example, full GAPS rather than going through all the GAPS stages? You will start to see, yes, you will see benefits in doing the full GAPS diet. So when you start to implement the full GAPS diet, yes, you will see benefits because you will start to use the principles of GAPS and balancing the gut microbiome. However, you have to moderate how you're implementing the full GAPS. One of the things I see is when people start with full GAPS, they tend to still gravitate toward foods that they would have eaten when they weren't on the GAPS diet. Or they substitute things that are on the full GAPS diet for things that would bring the same results if they were not on their diet. What do I mean? Let's say, for example, you're struggling with a yeast overgrowth, and so you start full GAPS, the full GAPS diet. At first, you might feel, or you might feel symptoms of the yeast getting under control. But then you introduce fruit. And so you start eating fruit all day. So you're drinking fruit juice, you're eating fruits that have high sugar content in it. Now, yeast love sugar, and it could be processed sugar and it could be natural sugar. And so, by being on full gaps and eating fruits, which are allowed on full gaps, you might not actually get your yeast under control because you've now just substituted with fruit. Okay, and it yields pretty much a similar effect. Okay, so there are benefits to going on full gaps, but you really have to monitor that you're not falling into some of the same habits just using foods that are allowed in full gaps. And I would just add to that, the quickest and the fastest way to balancing your gut and getting the microorganisms under control is to do the introduction diet. How would you take hing just with some water? Yes, you could use it just a couple of dashes with some tea. Um, in our household, we have it with, I mix it with clove and sage with a little bit of the hing. Like you don't need much, like just like a pinch or even less than a pinch for a glass or like a tea mug. You don't need much at all. And it has a very strong flavor. It's okay once you get used to it, but it does have a very strong flavor if you've never used it before. But yes, just mixing it with water, adding it to tea. It's a herb, it's a spice that's actually used in some cuisine, so you could add it to your food as well. If a baby has oral thrush, what would you advise the mother to do? Do parasites contribute to picky eating? Oral thrush is yeast. Okay, so mom will need to look into what could be causing the yeast overgrowth and try to bring that down. Okay, if it's a nursing baby, mom will likely need to address her diet if it's reoccurring. If it happens a lot, like the child always has thrush, then you have a yeast overgrowth and you want to look into your diet to see what could actually be fueling the yeast growth. And do parasites contribute to picky eating? Yeast contributes to picky eating, and bacteria contribute to picky eating. So those types of microorganisms in the mouth and in the gut contribute to picky eating. Parasites could be a byproduct of that. Okay, Yaki. Would you advise not taking the hing until you've done some gut healing? Yes, I would say, and I would recommend start doing some healing first. Okay, start getting yeast under control first because you want your body to start balancing things out naturally. Okay, so that goes back to what I was saying about just attacking things individually. Um, Yeast also has a job. Yeast collects and cleans up heavy metals in the body. So if you have constant exposure to heavy metals, you're going to have a lot of yeast in your body. Okay. So you always want to go to the cause. You want to go to the root, which is why we don't start off with just trying to do like an antifungal and anti-parasitic, because if the root of the problem is still there, the reason they're growing and overgrowing is still there, they're just going to come back. So if you don't have your yeast under control, but you're trying to kill the parasites, for example, the parasites are just going to come back because the yeast is there. Okay. So, yes, do some gut healing first and try to balance it out, and your body will start taking care of things naturally. Is hang the quicker way to kill worms, especially if you don't have many symptoms. If you don't have many symptoms, start balancing your gut first. That would be my recommendation. If you have many symptoms and it's really causing a problem, for example, you're getting symptoms like vomiting, uh, you absolutely can't sleep at night, you have no appetite, you're starting to lose weight, you're bloated, you have abdominal pain, cramping. If you're having these types of symptoms, yes, go ahead and use hing. Try to clear some of that out so you can normalize, okay? And then balance your gut. But if you don't have many symptoms, or you started balancing your gut, then you start having symptoms, just continue with doing the diet until those symptoms subside. Amin Wayaki. What do you think about detox binders like zeolite? Someone accidentally PM'd me this message. Okay. Dr. Natasha does recommend using zeolite um, for particular cases. I've never recommended it for clients. Um, it might be something that you want to have on hand. However, if your body is toxic, you still have to remove the toxicity. Okay, you have to start clearing out the toxicity. And just using a binder like zeolite is not going to be a long-term solution. It might be temporary. You might see some temporary relief. But again, because you're constantly in contact with toxins, or the source of the toxins is your body itself, then you have to deal with the source of the toxins and remove that and not just rely on a binder. Does that help? Okay, good question. What could be a source of toxins? It could be environmental toxins, yes. It could be toxins from coming from your gut. So if you have uh, bacteria overgrowth, pathogenic bacteria, ones that cause illness in your gut, then you're going to get toxins. If you have candida, which is a pathogenic yeast, if it's not under control, it causes many symptoms and it also produces toxins in your body. Okay. If you're eating foods that are processed and have chemicals, then you have toxins. If you are using personal care products that are toxic, then you have toxins. Okay. So all of these things are going to have an effect on your body, and you need to know how to remove them naturally, and how to get your body to cleanse on its own and not rely on a product or a binder. Again, it might be something that you use temporarily, but for long term, you really do want to get your body in a state where it is cleansing and detoxifying itself. What if you're already low tox from the gut? Can you explain a little bit, please? Question. Can you do full gaps while breastfeeding? Yes, you can. And that's the recommendation. If you're breastfeeding, do full gaps. Can you please repeat this question? What if you're already low tox, meaning explain what you mean by low tox. And if there are more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Sister, what about digestive enzymes? Can you use them while you're on intro or full gaps? Yes, you can, if you need them. Digestive enzymes are used for particular cases where a person is having extreme difficulty with processing fats, meaning uh, they have a bowel blockage or they don't have any bile at all and they can't process any fats. So digestive enzymes are used to help them get the process started, to get them on the diet. Yes, you can use that in the introduction diet and you can use that in full gaps. Another way to do that, which if it's not an extreme case, and I would say work with a practitioner in order to determine if this is a case where digestive enzymes are necessary. But for a lot of people, simply taking fermented vegetable juice 15 minutes before eating will actually help with the digestion. Can you have raw dairy on full gaps? You can have, yes, you can have raw dairy in the form of yogurt, sour cream, and kefir. Is gas after eating wheat a sign of a digestive problem? Yes, it is. Is spelt flour good? What about organic white flour? Okay, that depends on what your goal is. Okay, when we say good, what are we in reference to? What are we referring to? So let's say, for example, spelt will be a better flour than a normal non-organic wheat flour. However, if a person has digestive issues and they have leaky gut and they have several symptoms, then none of these flours will be good for that person. They will need to be grain free, to not have any grains at all, in order to repair that digestive problem. Now, they might feel like spelt flours is good for another purpose, but if they are trying to recover, then all of these flours would be removed from the diet until the recovery process has happened. So you can't have milk. Meaning to just drink raw milk, you would do that after full gaps. So once you're coming off of gaps, then you could drink raw milk. I was wondering if a child is showing heavy metal symptoms, how can they get heavy metals if your environment is low tox? But you said from the gut, it could be metals from there, correct? There could be metals from other places. If they've sometimes we say from dental work, from vaccines. I know of cases where they got metals from the cookware that was being used in a home. So there could be several sources of metals. Yes, that's correct. Okay, good. Unvaccinated, mom low tox. Okay, good. Then you want to investigate to find out where it is. It might already, what, investigate where the metal could have come from. But even if you can't find it, the GAPS nutritional protocol will help with detoxifying the body, inshallah. Wa iyaki. Can you prevent postpartum hair loss with full GAPS? It's likely, yes, because you will strengthen your body and give your body the nutrition that it needs. Probably a broad question, but where would you advise to start managing all of this and address this? Okay, uh, what do you mean by this specifically? What do you want to manage? Okay, now microbiome. Start with the GAPS diet. That is what it does. The GAPS diet balances the microbiome in the gut, and it also heals and seals the gut so that you're not having symptoms of leaky gut, which in turn detoxifies the body and eliminates or remedies many ailments, symptoms, and diseases. Do I have to do the GAPS diet to have better digestion? Is there an easier way? Okay. What is your ultimate goal? Okay. For the sister that asked, is there an easier way to have better digestion? What is your ultimate goal? If you have severe digestive issues, okay, and I don't know what type of issues you're dealing with, but if you have severe digestive issues, if you have irritable bowel syndrome, chronic chronic constipation, diarrhea all the time, acid reflux, um, abdominal pain, okay, persistent abdominal pain, these types of things, bloating, gassy, extreme gassiness, I would recommend that you do the GAPS diet because anything quick and easy is not going to be a long-term solution. Wallahu ta'ala alam. What I've seen is that anytime someone does something that's quick and easy, the results are the same. They're quick and they don't last. Okay. So you end up back where you were. So if your goal is for a long-term solution to get rid of these symptoms that you're having and not have them return, then the GAPS diet is where you want to go. That's what you want to do because you want to repair your body. It's not natural to have digestive issues. Okay, digestive issues tells us that there's something that's not working in our body. So we want to fix that if we're able. And the GAPS diet I've found is a very effective long-term solution. In my family, my husband was diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. We used to keep diarrhea medication in the cupboard all the time. Okay, he had a very sensitive stomach. But when we did the GAPS diet, alhamdulillah, he hasn't had those symptoms return, and we haven't used any medication in the last 10 years. Over 10 years now, alhamdulillah. For myself, I had chronic constipation as when I'm just talking about digestive issues. We had way more issues, but I had chronic constipation, and alhamdulillah, that hasn't returned. The son that made me want to do the GAPS diet, that made me start this journey, had the early signs of celiac disease. Okay, so he was on that trajectory, and alhamdulillah, with doing the GAPS diet, within 2 years, all of those symptoms were gone. He didn't have any more stomach pains, no strange stools. His stools had evened out. He didn't have a sensitivity to wheat anymore. So all of these, or dairy. So all of these symptoms have gone away, and they have stayed away, alhamdulillah. So that is, it's important to know what your long-term goal is. If you just want a quick fix now, there are things that you can do that are quick, but Allah Ta'ala alam, they will likely not last, and those symptoms will come back. But if you invest in yourself, invest in the time, and really put in your mind that you want to recover from these symptoms and not have them return, really consider doing the GAPS diet. Okay. Do I need to work with a professional to go on the GAPS diet? It does scare me. It would be a 100% entirely different diet that I don't think I could manage for my child. Okay. Yes. From what you described, I would recommend working with a professional. Work with a GAPS coach. I've worked with several women, many women over the years. I've worked with women over the last 10 years doing just that, helping them implement the GAPS diet. And I've been certified to coach women to coach mothers or anyone, anyway, who's approaching the GAPS diet with implementing the diet. The reason we have coaches is just for that there's a lot of information out there. It could be overwhelming. Um, it could be scary starting off because, like you said, it is different. So working with a GAPS coach helps out with all of that. And that's what I do for my clients. I simplify all the information so that you get exactly what you want and what you need to get started. If you're having difficulties like you're working with a picky eater, I definitely recommend that you get a GAPS coach if you're working with a picky eater, because that is a particular situation that requires support. When you're working on your own, it does take longer. I did it on my own at first, and alhamdulillah, we did see some. We saw changes. We did see some recovery, but there was a point where I just got stuck, and my son's uh, his stomach pains, his irregular stools, those symptoms weren't going away. And no matter what I read or tried to implement, I could not understand what was happening, why we weren't making any progress, why I couldn't get him to progress such that those symptoms would go away. And so, and essentially, we were stuck. We got stuck in a point in the diet where, alhamdulillah, he wasn't in any pain, but if I added anything, he would be. And so, I needed a way. I needed someone to help me get past that. And alhamdulillah, I found a GAPS practitioner who has started to offer services online when GAPS practitioners were not doing that at that time. And just working with her helped with understanding things that I thought I understood just from reading the book, but I didn't have the understanding, and so I wasn't implementing correctly. And so working with her helped me get past those stuck points. And so that is why I recommend people work with professionals, work with a GAPS coach. Uh, you're in the GAPS group, and so I'm accessible so that the process is easier, as systematic. You go by step. And then you also have someone there that is holding you accountable, someone there who can answer your questions if you have a doubt about something, or you've read something and you don't think that you've understood it, or you're not sure of your understanding of it. You have someone there that's immediately available to help you with that. So you're not on the internet searching or in this group and that group waiting for answers. You have someone there available at your side to help you through. Can you still benefit from full gaps if you allow for raw milk? Kids would struggle without milk, so just to make it easier. May I ask why you believe kids would struggle without milk? And I will look for that answer. Only get gas, but extreme gas. Extreme gas is still a digestive issue that you want to remedy. And it might actually go quickly. Everyone's journey on the GAPS diet is different, okay? It's very individual. So you might hear one person's story sounds one way and another person's story sounds another way. Consider what you want and where you want to be, and then you start from there. So you have symptoms that you want to remove. It doesn't immediately mean that it's going to be a daunting process. Okay. So you might, many of my clients find that their symptoms are starting to alleviate in the first 2 weeks. Okay. So try approaching it with a different mindset. Look at it as a long-term solution instead of wanting a quick fix. And I hope that helps. Would any GAPS diet book be useful to help me on and during the diet, or is there a specific book you recommend? I recommend one of the GAPS books, either the yellow one or the blue one, depending on what symptoms you're working with. But the blue one is very comprehensive, especially if you're working with symptoms that are physical. Uh, you see physical symptoms, allergies, eczema, bloating, arthritis, these types of symptoms. Get the blue book, and yes, you will have a good outline in it. Okay. I don't have a website, a personal website yet. I just use my Instagram, and that is at Mu'mina Abdullah. I'll put it in the chat. Okay, and that's my Instagram. Okay, and so you can contact me there. You can definitely contact me in the WhatsApp group. Are you in the WhatsApp group? If you are, you can reach me there. Waiyaki. What if the picky eating has just started and you're implementing gaps? If the picky eating has just started and you want to implement gaps, that's great. You're going to head it off before it gets any worse, because I've seen where that does happen. picky eaters tend to get progressively more picky. Okay. And so if you can go ahead and start implementing the diet, you will ward that off, inshallah, and you won't have that as an issue in the future, inshallah. How long do you have to be on the GAPS diet, and how long before you see any improvements? Okay. The typical recommendation is that you stay on the GAPS diet for 2 years. But understanding that that is not the introduction diet for 2 years, that is the entire process. Okay. So as you go through the GAPS diet, you will be adding in more and more foods. And by the time you get to full GAPS, you pretty much feel like you have a, a full palate. Okay. With not much missing. And then you want to stay on that for a year and a half. Okay. But to see improvements, many people that I work with see improvements within the first 2 weeks. In my household, I saw improvements with just removing one food item within the first 5 days. Okay? And that is what gave me motivation to go the whole, to do the whole thing. So you will see improvements quite quickly, inshallah. Okay. So is this in regards to milk? You think it's more you? Okay. So look into that. See what's behind that. Why do you feel like they have to have milk? Okay. It slowly started a few months ago. Just been bad for a few weeks. Already making changes. Good. Alhamdulillah. Yep. Start making changes, and inshallah you'll start seeing results. Okay. But just as a note, when we're working with picky eaters as coaches, there are particular techniques that we teach our clients to help break the behavior of picky eating so that the child can accept GAPS foods. Okay. I have a question for you. Type 1 in the chat if you are personally experiencing um, fatigue, digestive issues, body aches and pains, uh, other health issues. If you are experiencing those things, can you type 1 in the chat? Oh, good question. Can anyone go on the GAPS diet or only people with issues? Anyone can go on the GAPS diet. It is a very good way of gauging whether or not you're eating nutritionally or not. Okay. So you don't have to have issues, and going on the GAPS diet is still fine because you're going to have all of the nutrients that you need to build a stronger body. However, I will just add here, many people, there are few people who feel like they don't have any issues, but they discover that they actually do when they start the GAPS diet. Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Okay, if you okay, alhamdulillah, okay, there's no exactly ahead. Okay, if there are no more questions, I'm going to end this session here. You can find me in the GAPS group. Um, you'll see my name as Mu'mina, certified coach. Okay, just Mu'mina, it will be there. That's me. If you want to connect on IG, that's at Mu'mina.Abdullah. Okay, you're very welcome. And I'm going to be posting in the chat for the next topic, so look for that. What would you like to talk about next? Okay, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh wa iyaki. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I'm glad that you benefited and that it was informative for you. Mhm. Okay. So we'll connect again, inshallah. Just look for, I'm going to start putting in the group for the next one. And if you need to contact me, you're interested in getting support, you can find me there as well. And just PM me. I don't mind people direct messaging me. It's fine. Alhamdulillah, I'm glad that you benefited as well. I mean, wa iyaki. Okay, I'll talk to you all soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.